big part of the story is Real Madrid, in which you're thinking this team has turned the corner. They haven't. And over the weekend, what we were talking about is, can they sustain what they showed against Monaco? Can they sustain what they showed against Villarreal? And the truth of the matter is that today, when they were pushed, when the game got stretched, they didn't have a reset position. They didn't have any structure. They didn't have any organization. They were exposed time and time again in transition. And Benfica, deservedly so, win the game, and deservedly so, get into the playoff.
Real Madrid just crashed out of the Champions League top 8 after a humiliating 4-2 defeat to Benfica. The club that won this tournament 15 times couldn't even secure automatic qualification to the knockout rounds. Their goalkeeper conceded 4 goals. Benfica's goalkeeper scored 1. The kings of Europe look more like court jesters. Do you think this is just a bad season? Or is Real Madrid's Champions League dominance actually over? Let me know below.
A Hollywood ending then as Benfica beat Real Madrid by 4-2. It means that Real Madrid will have to go through to the playoffs. Benfica as well will have to make it to the round of 16, but it looked for so long that they were going to be out of this game.
Let's get one thing straight right from the start. Real Madrid is supposed to be untouchable in the Champions League. This is the club that treats this tournament like their personal playground. 15 European Cups. More finals than most clubs have even qualified for. A mystique so powerful that opponents supposedly trembled just seeing the white shirts. Except none of that mystique showed up in Lisbon on January 29, 2026. What showed up instead was a disorganized, defensively incompetent team that got absolutely demolished by Benfica. And the final scoreline of 4-2 doesn't even capture how thoroughly Madrid got embarrassed. This wasn't a close game that slipped away. This was a systematic dismantling.
He's taken this seriously. They wanted a top 8 spot, and yet again, his big names don't turn up when they have to.
No, and it's going to be an interesting second half of the season. There's a title race back on in Spain because of the way they've started. But the problems that were there for Xabi Alonso are just not going to go away overnight. Heavily reliant on Kylian Mbappe. A lack of discipline from other players. You've got Asensio, chucking himself to the ground, making silly and rash decisions, getting sent off. Rodrigo following him for dissent.
The match started badly and somehow got worse. Benfica's Schilderup opened the scoring in the 36th minute, exposing Madrid's defensive fragility early. Kylian Mbappe equalized in the 30th minute, briefly giving Madrid hope that maybe they could salvage something from this disaster. But that hope was short-lived and completely delusional. Schilderup scored again in the 54th minute. Pavlidis converted a penalty in the 45th minute plus stoppage time. Mbappe scored his second in the 58th minute, making it 3-2, and for a fleeting moment Madrid fans probably thought a comeback was possible. After all, this is the club famous for miraculous Champions League comebacks. But then, the truly humiliating part happened. Benfica's goalkeeper, Anatoly Trubin, scored in the 91st minute plus 8 minutes of stoppage time. The opposing goalkeeper scored against Real Madrid in a match they desperately needed to win. If you're writing a Hollywood script about the fall of a dynasty, you literally could not invent a more poetic and devastating ending. Oh, and Madrid finished the match with 9 men because both Marco Asensio and Rodrigo got sent off in stoppage time. Just absolute chaos. A complete meltdown. The kind of performance that gets managers fired and entire squads questioned.
Real Madrid remind me of a torn hamstring.
Okay.
Right? And the reason I say that is it's a sort of injury that you have to nurse, right? And it gives you a sense that maybe you're ready to get back. Maybe this is a moment in which you're ready. And then you go for a sprint and it tears right back up. That's what Real Madrid are right now. You're merely mending. You're mending and nursing this injury. But you are one sprint away from going off again. And that's where we are. It felt like they were ready. It felt like they had turned the corner. It felt like Arbeloa had some sense of confidence with his team and that this team was responding to him. But it was, as we said over the weekend, a house of cards. Because there is, for this team right now, they don't know who they are. There is no identity. And so today they went in a back and forth with Benfica, which you don't want to do because that's exactly what Benfica wants.
The consequences of this defeat are massive. Real Madrid finished outside the top 8 in the Champions League group stage, meaning they now have to play in the playoff round instead of advancing directly to the round of 16. For context, this is a club that considers anything less than a semi-final appearance to be a disappointing season. Now they're stuck playing extra matches against teams they should never have to face in February. Meanwhile, Barcelona cruised to a comfortable 4-1 victory over Copenhagen on the same night, securing their place in the top 8 with style. The contrast couldn't be more brutal. Real Madrid's biggest rivals handled their business professionally, while Madrid imploded in Portugal. If you're a Barcelona fan, this is the kind of evening you dream about. The defensive performance from Madrid was genuinely shocking. Conceding 4 goals to Benfica isn't just bad. It's a complete systemic failure. Where was the organization? Where was the intensity? Where was the supposed world-class talent that Madrid spent hundreds of millions assembling? Thibaut Courtois, who has been one of the best goalkeepers in the world for years, looked helpless. The defense in front of him was non-existent. Benfica created chances at will, and Madrid had no answers. This isn't a team that looks like Champions League contenders. This is a team that looks fundamentally broken. And let's talk about the Mbappé situation, because this deserves its own section. Real Madrid spent years pursuing Kylian Mbappé. They treated his signing like the solution to all their problems. The new Galactico who would restore Madrid to absolute dominance. The heir to Cristiano Ronaldo's throne. Mbappé scored twice in this match. Under normal circumstances, that would be celebrated. But his 2 goals were completely irrelevant because his team conceded 4. Individual brilliance means nothing when the collective performance is a disaster. And this has been the story of Mbappé's Madrid career so far. Moments of individual quality surrounded by team dysfunction. The expectations for Mbappé were astronomical, and he's simply not meeting them. He was supposed to be the player who elevated Madrid back to the top of European football. Instead, he's just another talented player struggling in a dysfunctional system. The problem isn't entirely his fault, but he's certainly not the solution everyone expected.
They won this open game. There was no sense of control through the midfield. There was no sense of control in terms of possession. And when it came to creating opportunities, when you had to go chase the game, then they got completely disorganized. And all the things that we have seen over the course of the last month and a half or so, they started to show back up. Those things don't go away as a miracle. They don't just disappear. This team has issues. They were going to show up again. They showed up again.
Multiple Champions League titles, tactical masterclasses, a reputation as one of the great tournament managers in football history. But this current version of Ancelotti looks completely out of ideas.
This team and some coach has to come in and get rid of the troublemakers because the chemistry isn't there, the group's not there, they don't play together.
According to the world, the troublemakers are Fede Valverde, Vinicius Jr. and Jude Bellingham.
But
You're not getting rid of them.
the problem is the president lets the players rule the roost. And it's not going to change. We can sit here and they can change managers all they want, but it doesn't look like it's going to make any difference to what happens on the field. And that's because what's going on off the field in the dressing room, the actual chemistry, the so-called big cheesies are ruling the roost on and off the field. And nothing's going to change until some of them, as you say, well, they can't go. Well, you better get used to this then. Because if nobody's going to get rid of them, you better just get used to listening to us, talking about everything going wrong, why it's going wrong, and nothing changing.
The tactics against Benfica were baffling. The substitutions made no sense. The defensive setup was suicidal. And when things started going wrong, there was no visible plan to stabilize the situation. Reports are already circulating that Unai Emery is being considered as a potential replacement. But replacing the manager won't fix the fundamental issues plaguing this Madrid squad. The problems run much deeper than tactics or team selection. This is a squad construction problem, an identity crisis, a team that doesn't know what it wants to be. Look at the roster. There's immense individual talent, obviously, but there's no cohesion, no clear playing style, no defensive structure. Madrid seems to be operating under the assumption that if you just throw enough talented players onto the pitch, they'll figure it out themselves. That approach worked in the past when Madrid had genuine all-time greats like Cristiano Ronaldo, Sergio Ramos, and Luka Modric in their prime. Those players could impose their will on matches through sheer quality. But this current squad doesn't have that kind of dominance. Vinicius Jr. is brilliant but inconsistent. Jude Bellingham had an incredible first season but seems to be regressing. The defense is a mess of aging veterans and underperforming signings. The contrast with Manchester City is particularly stark. City also struggled this Champions League campaign, but at least they had a coherent playing philosophy. You could watch City play and understand what they were trying to do, even when it wasn't working. With Madrid, it's just vibes and individual moments. There's no system, no identity beyond, we're Real Madrid and we win Champions Leagues. Except they're not winning anymore. And that's the terrifying reality Madrid now faces. The historical context makes this failure even more significant. Real Madrid has spent the last decade absolutely dominating the Champions League. 4 titles in 5 years from 2014 to 2018. Another title in 2022. Another in 2024. They made this tournament look easy while everyone else struggled. That dominance created an aura of invincibility. Madrid would go into matches as underdogs and somehow find a way to win. The late goals, the dramatic comebacks, the sheer refusal to accept defeat. But that aura is completely gone now. Teams aren't intimidated by Real Madrid anymore. Benfica certainly wasn't. They attacked Madrid with confidence, exploited their defensive weaknesses ruthlessly, and celebrated like they'd just accomplished something historic. Which, to be fair, they kind of did. Knocking Real Madrid out of the top 8 is a significant achievement. The financial implications of this failure are also worth considering. Real Madrid operates on a business model that assumes deep Champions League runs every season. The revenue from those extra knockout matches funds their transfer spending and wage bill. Exiting early, or having to play additional playoff rounds, disrupts that financial planning. Now Madrid will have to play at least 2 extra matches in the playoff round. If they lose those, they're out of the Champions League entirely in February. The financial hit would be massive. The reputational damage would be catastrophic. Sponsors and commercial partners pay premium prices to associate with Champions League success, not playoff round exits. And let's be honest about what this means for recruitment. Real Madrid's primary pitch to potential signings has always been, come win Champions Leagues with us. That pitch loses its appeal when you're watching Madrid get embarrassed by Benfica and finishing outside the top 8. Why would the next generation of superstars choose Madrid over Manchester City, Barcelona, or even clubs like Bayern Munich who are showing more competence? The mystique that made Madrid the most desirable destination in world football is eroding rapidly. The fan reaction has been predictably furious. Social media exploded with criticism of Ancelotti, the players, and the club's leadership. Madrid fans are not accustomed to this kind of humiliation. They expect excellence. They expect Champions League success. What they got instead was a goalkeeper scoring against them in a must-win match. Some fans are calling for wholesale changes, sell half the squad, fire Ancelotti, bring in a new director of football, start over with a clear vision and playing identity. Others are more measured, arguing that one bad season doesn't erase decades of success and that patience is required. But patience is not a virtue Madrid fans are known for. This is a fan base that whistles their own players during home matches if performance drops. The pressure on everyone associated with the club is about to reach unbearable levels. There's also a generational question here. Is this the natural end of an era? Madrid's last great generation is aging out. Modric, Nacho, and others are in their late 30s or already gone. The transition to a new generation isn't going smoothly. The replacements aren't performing at the level required. Every great dynasty eventually declines. Barcelona went through it after their Guardiola era. Manchester United still hasn't recovered from Ferguson's retirement. Maybe this is just Madrid's turn to experience mediocrity before rebuilding. But that's not how Madrid sees themselves. In their worldview, they're supposed to be above the normal cycles that affect other clubs. Real Madrid doesn't rebuild. Real Madrid just wins. Except right now, they're not winning. They're losing to Benfica and watching their goalkeeper get scored on by the opposing goalkeeper. The psychological impact on the players can't be understated. Losing in this fashion, in such a critical match with such humiliating details, destroys confidence. When the next big match comes around, will these players genuinely believe they can win? Or will there be doubt creeping in? Doubt is poison for elite athletes. Once you start questioning yourself, performance collapses. And right now, this Madrid squad has every reason to doubt themselves. Looking ahead, the playoff round presents serious danger. Madrid could draw a genuinely difficult opponent. Teams like Atalanta, Juventus, or even Manchester City if results go a certain way. There's no guarantee Madrid advances. They could legitimately crash out of the Champions League in February. That scenario was unthinkable a few years ago. Now it's a realistic possibility. That's how far Madrid has fallen. Some will argue I'm being too harsh, that one bad result doesn't define a season or a club, that Madrid has the talent and history to turn this around. And maybe they're right. Maybe this is just a temporary setback before another period of dominance. But the evidence suggests otherwise. This isn't one bad result. This is a pattern of defensive fragility, tactical confusion, and mental weakness that's been building for months. The Benfica defeat is just the most dramatic example of problems that have existed all season. Real Madrid's Champions League dominance was built on excellence in every department: elite goalkeeping, organized defense, creative midfield, clinical finishing, and mental toughness. Right now, Madrid is failing in almost every single one of those areas. The club has decisions to make. Stick with Ancelotti and hope he can salvage the season? Make a change now and bring in fresh ideas? Overhaul the squad in the summer? Double down on the current approach and hope things click? None of those options are particularly appealing, and all of them carry significant risk. This is genuinely uncharted territory for modern Real Madrid. Real Madrid's Champions League dynasty just took a devastating blow in Lisbon. The club that defined European football for a decade couldn't even secure automatic qualification to the knockout rounds. Whether this is temporary struggle or permanent decline remains to be seen. If you want to track Madrid's collapse in real time, smash that like button and subscribe. The Kings are falling, and it's glorious.